Welcome to the third and final interviews, roundtable discussions session of the exhibition Out of Context here in Miami during WAF Miami 2025. We are discussing two projects. So we have three architects representing two projects. So we have Fawad Kazi, of Fawad Kazi, architect based in Zurich, Switzerland, with his project, huge hospital in St. Gallen, hospital campus redevelopment. It's called Cantonal Hospital St. Gallen and Children's Hospital of Eastern Switzerland. It was not finished yet. It's a very long project in the making. It will take 20 years when it will be completed in 2029. It's an enormous project, $800 million project. And then we have Roger Riewe of Riegler Architects, based in Graz, Austria, and Berlin, Germany. And we have Miriam Koudmani, who is representing the firm as the one of the managing partners based in Berlin. And you are here with the underground museum in Katowice, Silesian Art Museum in Poland. So let's discuss these two projects. They are very different, but we do need to find common ground. And I think the common ground is the question of adaptive reuse, because both projects have prehistory. In your case, it's a 100-year-old, a century-old institution, campus-like hospital with many pre-existing buildings. Some of them had to be demolished, some refurbished, and then you are adding a whole series of new buildings. And in your case, it used to be a coal mine, which is, Katowice is very known for coal mines, and I understand that a lot of people work underground, which is very interesting, and that was the main idea why the museum is mostly underground. But nevertheless, there are many existing structures underground and above the ground. If you could talk about, how you, started this project, and what was the main idea, and how to relate to what was there already, because you didn't have to start from scratch. You had to relate to something that was there. What were some of the initial steps?
Yeah, well, in my case, as you mentioned, Vladimir, the campus was already there for around 100 years. So at the beginning, we studied quite intensively what was already there to find a starting point for our own design. So there was a lot of research and trying to understand the qualities of the existing building complex. And that worked out pretty well to somehow figure out that there was a lot of high quality already existing. And we took those elements as starting point, and we tried to extend and to continue those qualities into a new project. So it was a transformation of the existing situation, and trying, of course, to invent new ideas and to add those ideas and to transform the whole into a new solution. Yeah.
And what would you say, and also maybe you can talk a little bit about your relation, your view of adaptive reuse projects, because so many projects are becoming adaptive reuse. But in this particular case, what were the initial steps, and how did you try to relate to what was already there?
Well, as you referred to it in the intro already, Katowice is known, or was known, to be a mining town, or having 3 coal mines, not in use anymore. But so the everyday life, the working life, was always underground. And when going to this adaptive reuse, it's also the issue of a collective memory. something which is in the mind of the people, inhabitants, and something new is kind of interwoven, and so it makes it to be easier to be perceived and accepted by the public. I think this is a very special moment, instead of just having something new and kind of demolishing the existing, because there's always something existing, not only in physical but also mentally. We know about that. So this, I think, is for us in our work very important. And it's of course now, the adaptability is the issue of the time now, right now, because we've got so many projects, changing them, but using the structure there is, finding out the qualities, and then setting in something new.
And what would you say about this idea of going underground? Did you think that you would find more freedom underground than above ground? I understand this was a major competition, international competition. You were the only one who decided to make such a radical move. I wonder what was your rationale?
We developed a project in the office. We were sure we will not win, but we noticed it is a good one. So maybe honorable mention or something like that. But we noticed by putting the museum underground, we could also generate a new public space on ground floor level, which is the park. So actually you can buy two things for the price of one. And this maybe, I think, also convinced the jury finally. Because in political sense, it's difficult because there's no typical museum building which the mayor, the president can cut the ribbon and open. It doesn't exist. It looks like, say, a nursery, very abstract. There's actually, till now, only a very small sign right on the tower saying that it is something like a museum, but it's not written anywhere. It's still like that. Well-kept secret.
And what can you add about this project? I know that you did not work directly on this project, but maybe you can make, I'm sure you visited. No, you didn't visit it, okay. But what could you say about this project, but also, how does it fit into the whole maybe line of projects that you've done in relation to adaptive reuse? What do you think about this new kind of chapter in architecture? The necessity to react to what's already there and not start from scratch.
Well, I think it's a project which shows our idea of sustainability a lot since the beginnings of Riewe, that we are working in very complex subjects. We are working with the existing buildings, but then we have, of course, I think in this project we were talking about the underground museum, but I think the buildings above, the light boxes, when I can call them like the boxes which give light, they are also very important for the museum, and I think this is also maybe a reason why it's a winning project, because for museums it's always very important to deal with light, and of course it has very good reasons to have no natural light, but anyway I think it's representative for the museum that you have this very sensible sign of a new sign of the museum with this light, very elegant boxes. And the construction of the boxes is so standing for Riegler Riewe, that we are, for us the detailed construction and the very simple but complex construction is something what is very important for us, and I think this is also in this project. It's the dealing with a complex subject as the coal mining work, but also the history of this region. I mean, it's also very interesting, or a very important region, the Silesian area in Poland. That's what I can say.
Let's talk about the design of the project. Both projects are quite large. Maybe you would like to address, the issue of the design, overall, but also talk about very specific details. Let's say why you chose certain materials. What was the reason? how did that relate to what was there, and or how did you want to separate from what was there and start something new? Maybe we'll start with you about the design process.
Facing a project like a hospital, it means that you have to deal with the notion of flexibility. So this is a quite important part of such a project, that it's going to be used and reused and transformed for a long time. So we try to conceive a concept of permanent and flexible zones. You could also say hardware and software. And also, like Louis Kahn once differentiated between the service parts and the main parts and so on. So we established this concept of what is hardware, that is mainly the structure, the facade, and the public spaces. So the main entrance hall, the main gangways, corridors, that's, well, forever, for the whole existing of that building. And the rest, as we know, is really a flexible zone that's going to be reused and reprogrammed over the whole lifetime of that building. So this is on the concept level, and the very first idea of this concept and project. The other one is that it's a huge building mass. So the question is how to organize a huge building mass in such a context like St. Gallen. It's a middle-sized city in the eastern part of Switzerland. So we had the idea to define like a socle zone, 3 stories, and then some high-rise, we say them high-rise towers. So the main treatment areas are placed in the socle, and the parts for the patient rooms and the offices, they are concentrated more in the towers. And what happens with this kind of differentiation with the building mass is that the socle is quite low, and it's connecting the building to the ConText. That works pretty well. And the towers, they form like a new ensemble together with the old towers. So we adapted that concept of already existing socle and towers. And I think it's quite important that this kind of concept works pretty well in this sensitive context. And what we get through this differentiation is a 5th facade. And the 5th facade is a huge public park. So on the building itself, we have a green space, which is quite important for the acceptance of such a project, and also, of course, of how people feel while being in the hospital. So that's the next notion, that is the so-called healing architecture nowadays. So we try to use a lot of relations to the green space. So one is this park. The other one is that we try to use a lot of natural materials. So like wood in the interior, stone. So we used a lot of marble within the building. So we try to establish a relation between the building, the people, and natural materials. So that's also, I think, quite important. And finally, what is also worth explaining is that due to the scale, I mean, it's dealing with an urban planning scale, but we also, on the other hand, designed an own door handle. So we focused on the whole range of scales, from the big one down to the smallest. That's what you can still grab in your hand, and it's, I would say, the smallest architectural object. So we were focusing on the whole palette of scales within this project. And so finally, also due to the fact that it's lasting for 20 years, it means that it's covering a lot of my own personal time over the last 15 years, and also what we progressed in this time, and on what kind of subjects we worked. So it's like a mirror of what we are actually doing as architects in our office. I think that's a nice idea, yeah.
So yeah, and speaking of door handle, is on display
Right.
in front of your panel. So it's a it's a good material, kind of element which is representing your big project, but in a very small one-to-one scale object. And so, if you could talk about your design approach, your design concept.
Well, referring to the exhibited project with the museum in Katowice, so the specific challenge for us was, first of all, to work and detail in another country. And so, because they say detailing in Austria and Germany, Switzerland is very high. And so, but now we didn't know exactly what is the standard like in Poland. And so to cut down the detailing to a far extent, to make it very simple and that everybody can actually build it in a certain way. And then we came across like two vital issues. The one was with the underground museum, which was completely exciting. But when there's a fire in a museum, you cannot extinguish the fire with water. You have to use gas, carbon monoxide. So now with the underground museum, you have to flood the whole museum with carbon monoxide. It cannot get out. Wow. So the firefighters have to know about this, that when they run into this place, they have to have oxygen, pressurized oxygen. And suddenly you notice, why are most museums above ground? Because the gas can get out. And here the gas is down there. So it's a tricky thing, but it was a very strong discussion. And maybe it was very Polish in a way, because in Poland you've got a lot of gas-driven cars. So they're used to it. They say, okay, but it's how can we make ends meet? And maybe in Germany they would have told us, no way, you have to put the museum above the ground because of the carbon monoxide, right? And so when you visit the museum, you don't know about this. And this is something which we think is very important. So it's not, telling everybody all the problems and challenges we have. And on the other side, Miriam referred to these glass boxes, like, of a nursery, and which is a kind of handcrafted glass made in Austria, which we found by coincidence. And this company never made this glass in their life before in this dimension. And it's a glass which you can only order like 60% translucency or 80% translucency. And it's got like a floral pattern, and which you cannot control, and we like it a lot. So we detail something which we cannot control. And everybody thinks, you visit it, they designed all the patterns on this glass facade, but it's just out of control.
It's very incidental.
Yeah.
If you can talk a little bit about the circulation, because that also has very interesting, very special reference. And how did you decide on it? It's a very large element. It's a double helix ramp. If you could talk about that idea.
Well, as you said, the museum is underground, so it goes down like 20 meters. There are 2 levels of exhibition spaces, and it's fun going down, but you also have to walk up again, right? And you shouldn't forget about that. And we didn't want to have any escalators in there because of the sound. It's too noisy. And so we had these ramps. And then actually the quote was the ramps of the Penguin Pond in London Zoo by Lubetkin, with the 2 ramps where the penguins walk up and they cannot meet, and they just see each other, and that's why they're on the ramp. And it's always fascinated for us. We actually also wanted to make a bridge in Graz with these ramps, and nobody can actually get to the other side, things like that. And so we've got these 2 ramps in the museum. They're very close to each other. You can go down, you can say hello, but you cannot cross. And you go further and you end up in the other part of the exhibition. So it's a little bit of fun, but also of communication, of, this very small, short moment of saying hello, and you continue. And maybe in the exhibition you will be meeting each other. And it's also the fun part coming back up. You notice it's the same play going on. So you don't notice you've been going down 20 meters.
And I understand that this ramp was used and being used for very different reasons, for very different functions, right, and purposes.
Yes, actually, before the museum was opened and was finished, and then there was, I think, a budget problem. They couldn't move in. So they used it for all kinds of events, concerts, and so on. But it was also used especially for a catwalk for fashion shows. It was incredible. So there was a lot of, the people of Katowice were in this museum before it was a museum. And I think this made it so attractive. So maybe some people said, it's very sad it has become a museum now, but they were in concerts in there before. A special place already.
let's talk a little bit about the kind of atmosphere you wanted to bring into this project, because you wanted to alleviate the sense of fear. You don't know probably, but Fawad actually was a patient in this hospital many years
No, I
ago
didn't know.
as a teenager,
Yeah.
way before he came into this project as an architect. So you wanted to change the typical atmosphere of a
Right.
hospital and to bring what kind of atmosphere?
That's a good one. Yeah, as a young man at the age of, well, young boy, 14, I was playing football, soccer, quite close to this place. And it was raining, and I somehow was in the goal, and it was a very hard ball coming to me, and for a certain reason I had my hand up there, so the ball crushed my hand, and I had some pain in the arm. So finally I went to the hospital, to that one, the Cantonal Hospital
Same one.
in St. Gallen, the same one. And I had the hand, the arm treated. So that was my personal experience with that specific place. But I also knew this hospital as a guest and as somebody who is living quite close to this hospital, because it's so big and it's so dominant due to the high-rise elements. So that's in the collective memory of quite a lot of people there. So what I had in mind is, even at that time, that hospitals usually are not really comfortable. They are not really a comfortable place. So there is already, due to the interior, a certain distance that you have while entering a hospital. So when we decided to take part in the competition, since then I had this idea that the hospital lobby should look like a hotel lobby, because I like hotel lobbies. It's an interesting place because there are like multi programs happening in a hotel lobby. It's not just about waiting. It's about feeling comfortable, drinking a coffee, having a talk, listening to some music. So this kind of atmosphere I try to transfer to our hospital. And now we just completed last year the first big part of the project, and that part contains the main lobby, the new one. And it's a 1,000 square meter place. So it's a huge one. And we try to invent this idea of having several functions in the lobby, like waiting areas, a cafeteria, the reception, and just to stick there and feel a good space. And we try to support that idea with the use of natural materials, a lot of wood, warm light, and especially the invention of marble that was lightened from the back, because the hospitals are huge, deep spaces. So you have no natural light in the middle of such a complex. So that's why we try to establish a new idea of what could be the idea behind the light. So that's why we came up with this combination of using natural stone, marble in this case, and the light from the back. And I think it works pretty well that we have like a hotel lobby-like atmosphere in the hospital. And last year there was an open door day. So for one day the whole hospital was open to the public.
And you were there?
Yeah, there were about 10,000 people coming because it was a big event, and I was also walking with these people, and just incognito, I was part of the visitors.
Behind one of those columns.
And I was really curious about what is the reaction of the people, because my intention was to have a warm, pleasant atmosphere created in this complex. And I've heard quite often what it looks like in a hotel. It's pretty nice. If if I wanted to be treated, I want to be treated in this hospital. Wow. So that's why I think this idea worked out pretty well, I would say. Yeah.
So you succeeded finally.
Hopefully, yeah, I would say yes.
So we are now almost out of time. I want to talk about your architecture. If you, maybe two of you could contribute to the idea, what kind of architecture you're trying to achieve. I want to remind Roger a few quotes from our previous interviews. You said, for example, you said we hate boring architecture. You said objectivity is always misleading. There is no freedom in knowing too much. We think at all scales simultaneously. So how else would you talk about your work and what kind of architecture you try to achieve? And this is for both of you.
Maybe I could ask Miriam, would you agree to quote him?
Well, I think I made a very light criticism to one of the, or not criticism, but I agree, but I wouldn't sign the first citation. I think this is your favorite quote.
It is, yeah, with an exclamation mark.
Yeah, yeah. I think for me it's not, I don't know really what it means, boring architecture. I mean, I think I don't want to quote this as, because I think normally, and I think this is also, maybe this is my misunderstanding in this code, I think every question in architecture is interesting. Whatever a client wants, I think we make the very interesting project of it. And for me, it's a little bit, it could be a contradiction to this code. I know that it's, I mean, I think it's meant the transformation should never be boring, but for me it's, I prefer the other quotations, and I think our...
So which one do you prefer? Objectivity is always misleading, so you would prefer to be not objective,
yeah,
but really
no, they are the
kind of more personal.
Yes, but I also wanted to maybe say, maybe this is another level that I think for us is important. Maybe this is also something in common what we have with Fawad, that this multi-programming, and I think this is very multi-programming spaces, as Roger told, of the different functions which happened already before the museum in Katowice was opened, and also the landscape of Katowice was, the landscape architecture, the surrounding is also very multi-purpose or programmed by the inhabitants, by themselves, without giving special functions to it. I mean, Roger especially told how many, I know the photos and the documentation about the different sport programs or picnics, what happened there. And this is, I think, what is very important for us, to have flexible zones and to give the possibility for the users to use it for different activities.
Yeah.
But coming back to this issue of the boringness, right? And I think it's also meant to be more the colloquial use of the word, because I like, in this context, I like, the quoting Solowit, who says, the cube is so interesting because it's uninteresting. And that's good somehow. You start thinking about it, maybe you could say it's boring, but boring different way, but it's interesting or not interesting, and you start working with it. So there are lots of parts which seemingly are like boring, but I think this was more meant in the colloquial sense, right? Using this word boring, not of interest for us. Yeah.
But it's all about what is possible to discover. When you see something, there should be some kind of mystery always.
Like these elements of as found, right? As found, you use them, reuse them in a different way, and suddenly they become interesting again.
So let me finish with you, I guess. When we spoke, your quotes were, architecture can support the process of healing. I believe in the evolution of architecture. My work ranges from city quarters to door handles, of course. To build means to continue a place. So
right.
What would you add to that?
to all four.
The fifth one.
I mean, this notion of healing architecture nowadays, it's like a slogan that you hear quite often. That's why I say it can be. That I think that good architecture really might support this process of healing, no doubt. So that's what we try to achieve. And I think so far this first big step that we realized last year, I think in my opinion, it went pretty well. That the reaction of the people, the staff members, the patients, the visitors, also the colleagues, it's a very good kind of response. So that's why I think we are on the way to work on that quote and to fulfill this idea that it really might support. And about the evolution, I was always quite interested in, let's say, the work of my professors, for instance. So I try to understand what they did and where they stand, because I believe that it's interesting to be part of certain lines. So you have like a history, an academic history, and then you turn into your own practical work. And so that's what I mean with the way the evolution is going on. And of course, you're influenced also by other works of people, of interesting people, and whatever. So that's why the notion of evolution, I think, in my work is quite important. Then the range of scales, I think it's what we are trying to do with this project, this specific one, from the very big to the very small scale. And the last quote, I think, is quite important, because I believe that every context is there. So it's already existing. So whatever you do, even if it's in the desert, there is a context and there's a history existing over there. So you have to, I think, stick and try to understand what's happening there and what is your intervention and doing with the place. So that's why I think it's the responsibility of us as architects to understand what is the context and what are we doing with the context while we are building. That's why the quote, the last one. Yeah.
Out of context. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you
for
participating.
Thank you.
So this completes our 3 sessions of interviews and roundtable discussions. And after this, I will continue interviewing delegates, guests, and I will ask them about their goals in this course of architecture and what do they bring to the table.
Yeah.
Roundtable. Thank you.
Thank you.